Hello and welcome to another episode of ommmsome Life Design Podcast. And today I'm so grateful to bring you an amazing guest who is an author of the book. I'll show you the book. Die with Zero. So I listened to it on Audible. You can get it anywhere on Amazon. Easy order. Why? Because it gives you perspective. He talks about money. He talks about death. Two very serious topics, and it involves health, it involves your life. So dying with zero, his concept is about dying with $0 left. So you haven't been saving and just living like this in a fear-based mode, but you've been spending it on experiences, on memories that you can later on in your life remember. And I know it sounds like, oh yeah, but that's what everyone says. But have you actually sat down and written, look at this, that's my lifeline from I'm 32 now till I'm thinking around 100, and written down I just started writing down some of my experiences, and then asking yourself a question, okay, in which timeline can this go? From now, from 30 to 40, yeah, probably I can climb a mountain, but if I'm 80, I can't do that anymore, right? So it gives you these perspectives of wait. Oh, I have to do some things now. I have to go and spend that time with my grandma and maybe gather the whole family together because they are about to die. They're very old. So it's beautiful because it made me think so much and reflect. And also I've been going through death meditations when in India studying yoga and meditation. And then I've also done, my life has been all about experiences. Wherever I moved, I was like, okay, I can live in Luxembourg. Okay, Paris is close. I can see the Eiffel Tower. Oh, I can go to Brussels. I always lived about experiences, and now and then I forget it, and then my life becomes oh, I don't know, I'm not too excited anymore. And this was again a reminder okay, what at this point in my life, what is the priority? If I have that many hours to live, if I earn this much, do I really want that house that would take if this is my life, would take half of this to work for it? I don't think so anymore. I'd rather buy the big family table and invite everyone over for a dinner. So priorities, perspectives, it does change it. So Bill Perkins is an amazing author, and he's a very inspirational person. This is some questions about life, we talked about homeschooling, we talked about his inner circle, about his experiences and how he views life. Your chance to get him know a little bit better. And if you want to journal with me about this next week on Tuesday on my journaling group on Facebook, we're doing this, and I think we'll do it for next week and the week after. So like a bucket list, but with your timeline and putting things in there, so getting nice perspective. So just email to ommmsome@gmail.com, ask me and I will add you to the group, or just get in touch with me on Instagram and I'll share the information with you there as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bill, again, and enjoy the podcast. You can find Bill on Instagram, Bill Perkins, and just follow him there, or also on Twitter, and check out his book, Audible, 3 seconds, and the book is yours. And then you need another 5 hours to listen and then some hours to write about your life. So yeah, enjoy. Super. Well, thank you so much for saying yes to ommmsome podcast.
Okay.
It was amazing to see you on Gary Vee. And when I heard your story, I was like, oh, that guy is telling about the life that I'm living, and he's written a book about it.
No, that's good.
Yeah. And I was just listening to your audiobook, and man, I admire you, because those two topics, it's money and death. I mean, that's heavy.
Yeah. But you don't want to, if you stick your head in the sand about it, you're just kind of not getting everything you can out of this ride,
Yeah.
And it's a ride and it ends. So I think a lot of people just want to go, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to be aware in a visceral way that not only do I die, but I decay. And so they live suboptimally.
Yeah. So how many hours have you got till you die? Or do you do hours, or do you do days?
I do all the way down to the millisecond, but
oh my gosh.
it's only an estimate. The millisecond is useless, but it says 12,914, 6 hours, 5 minutes, but based on what I put it in.
Yeah. Because you know what, when I heard that on your book, I have a little vision board things here on my altar, and I have one of them is 613
200,000 hours to live, because I did like maybe till 120, if maybe,
Yeah.
that happens, since I believe in biohacking and all that. And
Right.
it made so much sense when I did that. And then I was like, okay, what's the money that I could earn? And if I want this house, like, do I want to spend that many hours on that? I'm like, I don't think so anymore.
Yeah, you start thinking about that. I mean, the whole hours concept in your life, like I said in the book, Your Money or Your Life was the book that like kind of just cracked my head open to that. And then I took it, a step further in a little bit different direction from just, hey, I want to, that book is kind of like, hey, you can be independent and here's how you get there, right? But it was more of a goal setting book as opposed to a life modeling book. And my book is more a life modeling book, right? It's about modeling your life from wherever you are right now to the grave.
It sounds so harsh as well. How do people perceive you when you say that, like modeling your life till your grave?
Yeah, till you're dead. A lot of people, like, they think it's morbid, like, etc. But like, if you were on vacation and it never ends, you freaking sleep in, you do whatever, blah, blah, blah. But when you know something's going to end, and I talk about this in the book, like you actually, it gives a sense of urgency and you actually do shit and do things and take action and plan and have an experience, right? Like but when you stick your head in the ground, like, oh, I'm never going to graduate college, I'm just going to loaf around and I'm never going into the job market, then you don't plan, you don't do these things. And then you just have that much less of a fulfilling life. Right?
How do you balance between, urgency for many people is like anxiety, some people might get anxious if you tell them like, oh my gosh, you have that many hours to live, and they'll get anxious, but I think that urgency to live, that's a little bit,
Whenever I feel overwhelmed, I start like writing it down and time bucketing, and it's not, the clutter starts to go away because you have this like, oh, I want to do, and you have all these things, right? And they're not organized, and it's like walking into a room and it's just a mess, clothes are everywhere, blah, blah, blah. But when you start like writing them down, like, I don't need this, I throw this away, you organize it, whatever, I think the anxiety tends to go down, right? Like trying to do it all in your head is beyond the capabilities of our brain. So writing it down and like you have a vision board or putting it out, I think that reduces anxiety. But just I say the words and you're like, 12,000 hours, what am I going to do? It's like, well, you're going to have a really, really, really full life if and when you map it out. Like my problem, and I think other people have this problem, is like when I go into my time bucketing exercise where I'm like, okay, the experiences I want to have from 50 to 55 or 56. The problem I have is thinking of things, right? And what do I really want? So I have to like get rid of the distractions and think about what I really want. And it's like, wow, that looks pretty empty. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, oh, well, let's go down a level. How many times, even mundane things, like how many times do you want to go to the gym? Or how many times do you want to go to whatever, and filling it up. And then I get ideas, and I know that, life is discovery. You don't know what you want, you discover what you want, right? And so I know the things that I want, I've discovered, right? And now I'm like, okay, I want to do those things. So I know some of those things will come along the time, and this is always a work in progress that I'm going to constantly update it and take things off, add things on, etc. So just knowing that gives me a sense of calm, and I'll get there. But the real thing is that if you're just taking even 10% of these steps, you're going to have that much more fulfilling of a life.
How often do you do the journaling practice, the timeline? How do you practice this for your life, and how often do you update? And like, is it a daily practice, or do you like spend a day every month or every 6 months?
I am not the best student of my own work, but
but you have the method.
But I have the method, and I've been working on tools. But I think I want to, like, if I were when I do it, it's like tiny steps. Just stick with one period and then go, come back to other periods. And if it comes to you, you have an internal prompt, like something, and you want to put it down, go down, right? But stick to like a few things, and I would do it like once a month, whatever frequency that allows you to be consistent, that's what you should do. Don't pick a frequency that you're going to be disappointed, and then you missed it, and then you're down on yourself, and then you don't do it, and then you just forget it because it's too hard, right? It's like, Pick a frequency that you know you can do, that allows you to be consistency, and that allows you to be consistent, and that consistency will get you there. Next thing you know, you got this full vision board, like all mapped out and all these things. And then you have your 10% or 20% potluck bucket, you know, there's something going in there. I don't know what it is. I'm going to discover it. It's called discovery and random interactions. Right. And that's how you get there, you know, small steps towards your goal, small, easy steps towards your goal. So if you're a professional writer might be able to do it every day or every week or whatever. If you're just very busy person with 2 kids and running around and job and stuff like that, it might be once a month, might be once every 90 days, you know, but either way, just getting it down and getting yourself in that mindset will and being consistent. You're already light years better than everybody else who's on autopilot.
How do you find the things that are truly like the experiences that you want to have? Probably at the beginning as well, you had the classy bucket list or something, you know, like whatever, like whatever one else around you wants. And like, how did you craft which experiences are truly that you want in your life?
I mean, it evolves over time, especially with age. You know, a lot of the experiences you want are really a direct result of culture, right? Like,
yeah,
I
totally.
was married when I was 22. Well, if you lived in like, you know, this society that's highly about marriage, then that's your dream, right? And I want to eat these foods and I want to go here and this represents success to me, right? And so you're really not living your dream, you're living the dreams of others, right?
Yeah.
And so as you get older and you become more independent and you get your culture and you get out in the world, you start discovering things are done differently. Things are more interesting to me. This is, wow, I wish I really took a gap year instead of going straight to college and grinding it out, right? Like, and so I would say that the way to discover what you want is random interactions.
What does that mean for you?
I mean, it's like going out and exploring, right? You have to explore and discover what you want. It's like, you know, Steve Jobs used to say, like, surveys are useless. He used to say, like, these consumer surveys are useless. People don't know what they want. You need to tell them what they want, right? Nobody needed a damn iPhone, right? Until they discovered, here's an iPhone, right? Like,
exactly.
One of the most populous things, right? And so most of the things that I want, if you look on my list, are things that, holy shit, I didn't know that existed, right? So I'm scattering around the internet and I see a big giant sunfish and we're like, shit, I want to swim with the sunfish. You know?
Yeah.
No, I want to swim with the whale sharks, right? That's one of the things I want to do. You know, I was like, I want to hike Machu Picchu, and I learned about this train ride that goes through all the thing, whatever. I was like, I want to do that, right? Like, or there's some sort of ceremony, or I want to watch, you know, something, you know, I never Burning Man or whatever the event is, or I want to connect with my aunt. I didn't realize she was so funny, or you know, whatever. So I want to spend more time with my aunt. The list is infinite, right? It's just, you have to get about the world and touch it, see it, feel it, and have information passed back to you. And then you run through your filter, right? And as long as you're not on autopilot, your filter will be correct.
Because I've been living like this forever in a way, but at the beginning as well, it was like, okay, this sounds cool. The traveling, the nomad lifestyle, then blogging, then this, then that. And then at some point you realize, I'm like, wait, like, this is kind of like what I thought it would be great, but it actually doesn't fulfill me that much. It's like nice experiences. It's like amazing memories. And at one point I stopped. I was like, okay, I'll stop traveling to really understand. Because for me, travels was like everything.
Right.
To understand what I really want. And then I went more specific. I went more into yoga, into meditation. And then I would get like, oh, I want to go there if they have the yoga studio that I want, you know, or something like that. And that gave me another experience as well. Because that was more crafting my type of, you know, what experience I want.
Right, but that was valuable because you discovered what you don't want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And then you're over there. But when you like really deeply think about it, like you start to, everybody's different, right? Different things are going to turn other people on and other people off. You have to like kind of throw off. You know, culture's not completely bad, right? Some of the things that I've been cultured to like chocolate ice cream and pancakes, right? I don't eat fried crickets and whatever on a stick because I didn't. But like that's a delicacy in other places, right?
Yeah.
Like you go. I was in China and it was just like, what? And I'm like, yeah, this stuff is good, you know. crunchy and it's got salty flavor.
Yeah.
And, you know, those things I know, it's like, oh, I was raised doing that, and it's okay, right? But really, you want to like kind of get back to your wilder self and be like, what is important to me? You know, what experiences I have. Do I value being in one place on a farm and catching seasons every year and planting crops and having that, you know, those many things? Or do I want to go kayaking across the ocean and glacier hiding and, you know, doing crazy, more ambitious life? Every person's going to be different. Every person's going to be different, you know.
How has your list changed from when did you start? How many years has it been now, this lifestyle?
I would say, like, you know, I've been formulating these ideas of like, you know, what experiences I want to have, et cetera. But like, I early, you know, I made a dynamic decision, and a dynamic decision is a decision that affects subsequent decisions, right? Like you having a glass of water today or not doesn't affect something you're going to do a year from now. You getting married does. And the biggest dynamic decision I've made is having kids. So even though I didn't, know it at the time, I was making about 2,000 decisions going 13, 16, 21 years into the future of where I'm going to be, what I'm going to do, things I will or will not do, and what my priorities are. Right. And so a lot of, how my wants have changed, have been, and like my experiences I want to have, you know, changed drastically from those two dynamic decisions, specifically kids. Right. And so that evolution has happened. And then so what I want at what period, once that happens, right, that highest priority decision, right, the welfare and raising of the kids and experiences with them, they grow and change, right? They're toddlers, they're whatever, then they're teenagers, and then they don't want to have anything to do with you for a while. You know what I mean? You have different experiences. And so that has been the base underline that shaped what I want to do and when I want to do it. More importantly, when I want to do it. And if the when doesn't match my health curve, then I never get to do it.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one. So it's different for a single person. Single person, you know, or with less, I wouldn't say restricting, but less defined dynamic decisions, right? You know, it's really going to be on your age and your feelings. You know, as you change, your temperament changes. You know, things that were fun to you, you know, it's just like when you were a kid, tic-tac-toe was fascinating. And then it's, you know, that's boring, right? It's like nothing. And then, you know, when you're 17, 18, getting into the club and hanging out is like, oh, the rage, give me my freaking close, let's go, you know? And it's like, you know, I'm not going to dance for 4 hours straight raving, you know, as much or ever again. You know, I always say my glow stick days are done. Not because I can't do it. It's because it's just not as interesting to me anymore, right? Something changes in you. And that happens not just in clubs and tic-tac-toe and games, but in other areas of your life, right? I used to golf like mad. I was a golf addict. And it's not as, I'm like, you know what? It takes too much time. Blah, 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 you know, whatever. I do enjoy golf and I do like it, but it's just too much time out of my day. And I'm, you know, it's faded out of my life, you know, not that I won't go play it or whatever, but the frequency at which I did, it's gone. And so I think you just, as a human being, you know, you have some foresight into how you're going to evolve, but not complete foresight. So that's why you constantly, you know, this type of model, this mental model in your life is constantly being refreshed and updated. Right? Because your ability to forecast your wants and needs, the error increases the further you go out in time.
Yeah, totally.
So as you get older and you get closer to it, you want to just refresh it and update it. And it also, you know, you're picking up new ideas all the time. It's a dynamic model. It's not a static model. Right? It's not like, oh, yeah, plan this, write this out, do your time bucketing, and then go ahead and live life. No, it's dynamic. It's continuously updating. And the frequency is up to you.
Yeah, but I love the fact that what many people think, oh, this is my bucket list. I can do it, you know, when I retire. I'm like, no, you can't climb that mountain.
No, you can't do it.
And that, like, so many people, it's just like, they don't think about it. You think from this moment, okay, with this body, with this strength, with this energy, I could do it. But yeah.
Oh, even then, like I'm working on mapping it back to time, right? So there's the money aspect in it, but it's like a lot of things I want to do. It's like, okay, this trip would take 2 weeks. This trip would take a month. I got this obligation, that obligation. It doesn't all fit in this year. Actually, it doesn't all fit in these 3 years, you know? So you have to also think about like how the logistics are going to play out given the constraints of my life. Like your constraints are different than my constraints versus somebody else's constraints, right? And so you got this bucket list, and I'm like, well, how's that going to go? You got to go to Aunt Betsy's funeral. You got your kid's graduation. You got whatever, you know what I mean? Like you got to think these things through, right? And you need to get rid of the clutter and say, wait a minute, the time is now. It's not then, it's now, right? Not only for your health, but just because I can't put all the timing in, you know?
What amazing things have you done for your health? Like because of this approach to your life and lifestyle?
I think one of the things like I've done, I've done something bad and good. The biggest thing I've done for my health is diagnostics, right? Somebody gave me a quote saying that somebody wrote a book or has a philosophy, you should be spending 10% of your income on health, right? Just keep maintaining, that's maintenance in the gym and also diagnostics. And so the biggest thing you can do to stay healthy is to know, to be aware. Am I healthy? Am I fit? Do I have any diseases? Do I have any propensity to diseases? Just, you know, scans, whatever. And the diagnostic technology is out there. You know, it's not covered. Some of it's not covered under insurance or et cetera. But if you can get the diagnostics, you do don't miss your annual checkups, do X, Y, Z. And if you can afford to do extra diagnostics and full workups and executive health, do them, right? Because that gives you a proactive approach to saying, hey, dude, you're the type of guy that needs to do X or Y to maintain your health. Or you have this degenerative cartilage and you need to stop doing any kind of impact exercises and do these type of exercises instead of these exercises, right? And that's going to drastically change the quality of my life, that I'm aware of certain things on the specific ways my body is going to deteriorate, right? On top of that, you know, the probably equally as important or even more important is getting the information that like, hey, here are the things on longevity and quality of life, right? It's make sure you do exercises that make you sweat, right? Not a steam or sauna, but sweat 4 hours a week. Right? You get enough sleep, right? You must get at least, from my body, my stage, 7 hours and 20 minutes is the goal every night, right? These supplements and et cetera, and the balance in my diet, this is the way your gut absorbs these nutrients, right? So they do a whole gut test, whatever, and blah, 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 blah. Here are even bigger, and a doctor should probably tell me which one is bigger or not, but is what foods are inflammatory to you and what foods are not. Because inflammation is death, right?
That's so interesting, because what you're saying, that's like Ayurveda. I don't know how much, you're probably a lot in holistic doctors as well, and medicine, no?
I mean, my doctor, I don't want to call them holistic. They look at the whole picture, I guess. I mean, they're like, look, you know, one of their big things is, you know, diagnostics and various supplements to keep you balanced is that they measure what foods that are inflammatory to me, specifically to me, right? My genes, and which are in the like kind of yellowish, and which are the green. And so, you know, recently we've just gone through that whole, we had it actually on this, I'm in my kitchen facing my living room, you're facing my living room, but we had the papers out and like, these foods, no, these foods, whatever, not have these, do you like this? You know, it sucks when a lot of the things that are on your green list you don't like. And then when something you love is on your red list, you're like, oh shit. You know, what am I gonna do? But that, you know, taking those steps, you know, every day you put things into your body that are bringing you closer to the grave or further away. Right.
That's super important.
That cumulative impact, you can't fade that. Right. You can't fade, you know, that negative impact if you're constantly eating foods that inflame you, increase your risk of cancer, increase your risk of heart disease, increase your risk of you know, stroke, dementia, etc. And so I think it's not this big dramatic step. Like I went to the mountain and it rained on me and I did this thing and it fixed everything. It's these deliberate, consistent steps and small changes that I'm making in my diet and exercise that will drastically change my value of future experiences, because I will be healthier, I will be more cognitive, I will be able to do them, And even in the one, and I will have more experiences that I will be able to enjoy, as opposed to,
Mm.
yeah, I could do them, but it sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everything hurts.
Yeah, everything hurts or it sucks, and you don't know, but
Yeah.
people don't want that, right? Like
Yeah.
it changes the value proposition of travel. Like if you're a traveler, right? Like I've said this before. I went to St. Petersburg in Russia, and it's great because they let you walk up these churches, these old churches, up the
Mm-hmm.
stairs and walk around the balcony. You see Petersburg, and you're really able to explore and see interesting places from different vantage points. But there were like 6 buses lined up, a lot of Chinese tourists, a lot of European tourists, whatever, of, older people generally go on these buses for social reasons, whatever. Not one of them climbed those 210 steps.
Wow.
They were walking around. They were able.
Mm-hmm.
I bet I bet a lot could not.
Mm.
But there were also a significant amount that could, but they're not going to do it because
Mm.
it hurts. It's a pain in the
Mm-hmm.
ass. It's not enjoyable. So St. Petersburg, the value proposition of St. Petersburg's for them was different.
Yeah.
For me, it was a 10,
yeah.
and for them, it was a 7. They get 7 experience points and I get 10, or they probably got 3 experience points and I get 10. I mean, and I'm not saying it like me versus them. Think about it as you in your best, healthiest self versus you and your least or moderate healthy self. You get 10 experience points or you get 7 experience points. You choose.
Yeah. It's simple, but it's actually really, really deep, because I'm always like about the experiences, like, oh my gosh, I went there and I met this person and then we went to this coffee shop and then I found that book, and like
Right.
everything flows, and then someone else goes to the place and they're like, it's not as awesome as you told, but because I feel great in my body, I have good energy, and things always flow for me. But
Right.
that's my approach. It's like what you're saying. That's my 10, that's
Yeah.
my 10, because I set my experience and my intention for the experience.
And also like your construct, like your mental construct of who you are and your energy, like you're going to be open to things that other people wouldn't. So like you have to always solve for each individual, right? Like you can't transfer my experience of like watching the sunrise in Capri versus somebody else. Like, I don't care. Me, I'm just like, this is amazing experience. I'm connecting with ancient Romans. Imagine the people thinking about things, like it's a different experience. But for a given person, keeping that variable the same, then we can start solving for your health, etc. Like if you have a crabby attitude, okay, you're gonna have a crabby attitude everywhere you go, but let's solve for your health and all these other variables to make sure that you have the best experience given your disposition in life.
Well, it's a lot of work to get to know yourself, like who you really are, and then what you're going to enjoy, and like what's the best experience for you. That's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of the book is like, it's really like get the fuck off autopilot type of book. It's and it's hard. It's difficult because autopilot gets us into places and allows us to be experts in what we do, right? We go into work and I've been doing this for 10 years. I do this, I do that. You're freaking expert, right? And I go home and I cook the dinner and I raise the kids and I whatever, and I make the money and I got the bonus, and and you get into these routines, and then the years go by and you're like, what was I doing? What was it for?
Yeah.
Why did I do that? And we know the original reason you did it. You created habits to make yourself successful in whatever you were doing. But those habits were not the goal. The goal was life. The goal was living life and experience. And so you get disconnected from that and you forget, like, hey, I need to get everybody else's wishes and dreams out, get mine in, and think about what experiences do I want to have and when. A
real reset.
Yeah, a real reset, because like the ultimate reset, like you like I say, you have you don't die just once. This is going to sound morbid. You have many deaths, right? The teenager in you dies and becomes an adult. The college student dies and becomes a working. The first job person, newbie in the job, dies, whatever. The single you, if you get married or have a significant other, that dies, and now you're paired up and partnered, right? And so on, right? And within those periods, okay, there are experiences meant for those periods and those periods alone. Some can transfer out to others, right, with some difficulty or not, but some of them are just for those periods. And if you're not aware of yourself and the things you want when, then you go through life not getting all you can. because you have all these little deaths until you hit the ultimate death when you cannot do anything. It is over. Oh, we lost lights. It is over. Your ride is over and it's done, right? The ride of me having toddlers, my kids being toddlers, that's over.
Yeah.
They're going to the park and holding their hand and poo rides and Disney and all the things you could think of with little kids. It's done. If I didn't do it, it's a regret now, you know? And so, and so on, right? And I'm just using that period because it's familiar to me, but other people have different time buckets in their life where those experiences are meant for. And so if you're on autopilot, you're just like driving home and you just make all the right turns, but you don't even know how you got home, right? Like, cause you've done it so many times. But you missed all the views along the way and everything that was happening, right? And then you're dead and you don't get to drive anymore.
Exactly.
So it's a wake up, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned Burning Man before. Was that on your list? Is it in the done list or is it?
It wasn't. I actually went there for like 3 days. So I'll tell you a story. My friends have been begging me to go to Burning Man, begging me. And my friends are like experimental, let's say mind-altering people, right? They like to try stuff. And I have never, ever, ever in my life done that. I didn't drink until I was 21. I was very much like, I don't want to do that until I'm much older because I was concerned about the impact it might have on my other things, right? I bought the Kool-Aid on how bad it is for you.
Yeah.
Right? And so I went and I was like, I was going to go with my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, okay, we're going to try it together. I want to be with you. I don't want to be out of integrity. I don't want to be on some drugs and then have some wild orgy affair and be like, oh shit, I was out of integrity, but I couldn't help myself. I was on whatever, because I didn't know. And so anyway, she winds up not being able to go. She booked a job. She had to film this TV show or whatever. And then I went alone and I was got in. It was desert. I was all into the costume. I came as Xerxes. I got in shape. I wore the Xerxes costume and in the desert. I liked the art and the community, but there was so much peer pressure to try drugs. I just got out of there like within 2 days. I just left. I just flew. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to escape these guys. They're like seriously pressuring me to join the so I left, but I do want to go back now that I've crossed that threshold and experience it again. But unfortunately, during this time, we don't know when.
I know. So I had it on my list and then I had a chance to go last year. And like you said, I hardly ever drink, and like drugs, it's like drugs like this. And I go in, I made some friends and they're like, you can see like, it's all just like full with drugs. And it's like, here are 3 lines of Coke. I'm like, I'm not doing Coke. I'm like, bye. Yeah. But we didn't have peer pressure because that was my fear. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do here for a week? I'm like, I can say no, like today, but if someone like pushes every day, it's like, whoa, but no.
I get their point of view. It's like, this is a wonderful experience. We want you to join us in this wonderful experience. And I'm just like, I'm in fear mode and like not fully researched, not with my significant other at the time. And I'm thinking like worst case scenario and being out of integrity. And I was just like, okay, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful setting and I love the arts and it's just an incredible place. So I was really taken away.
I love that aspect of it. And I'm looking forward to going back. But, you know, it's more the socialized. I did a summit in LA, which is kind of like Burning Man meets TED. And I really enjoyed that, you know, those type of things. Like discovered a lot of interesting people doing great and wonderful things. Got my brain neurons firing and I really love it.
What's the greatest experience you have had in 2020? It's a wild year, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I went, I would say it's the trip I just took recently to Croatia, Greece, and Italy. I got engaged on that trip in Dubrovnik. So that was fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I just traveled around and I just really, like every time we were kind of boating around and went biking in places and discovering and learning. And that's really my thing, you know, like it was fantastic. And I would have never went to Croatia. Croatia is one of the places would be last on my list to travel to, right? I would be like, oh, why am I going to travel? I can go to Italy or go whatever. But it was the only place that was open that allowed people to travel to. And then once you were in Croatia, if you did 2 weeks in Croatia, other EU countries would be like, okay, you don't have COVID, you've been in the 2 weeks. Now you can come to Italy. Now you can go here. And it was a wonderful place. I was blown away by visiting Croatia. And I was all around it for 2 weeks. Unseko, World Heritage Sites. I mean, it was just great. And so that was fantastic. And the other thing I really enjoyed was, my kids would say this is the worst part, but I was in a situation where my kids were forced to be with me a lot. Remote schooling, in whatever. And it's not like just the touches, right? They're not like high quality touches, like, some Hallmark card and we had these dramatic moments. It might even be like, Dad, you're annoying, or Dad, you're whatever. But I was there and I was with them and I got to see them. And that was a huge benefit of them switching to remote schooling and being with me and et cetera. So I really enjoyed that as well.
The whole family being together, huh?
Yeah, it's like something like, life goes by fast, and next thing you know, they're out and they're on, they don't want to be with you, et cetera. And then we had this thing that forced us to be together more all the time. Like, that was annoying as hell to them, but for me, I was like, this is great. I would have never gotten this time otherwise.
What is your view on homeschooling and, educational system as well? Because, I mean, what you teach, it's not exactly what they teach at the school, right?
Yeah, I mean, oh wow, that's such a big, broad topic. I mean, I'm gonna be talking out of school, like out of my area of expertise, because you're like asking about the system, homeschooling. I see benefits to homeschooling, a lot of benefits. Like, my kids play soccer against a homeschooling league. Like the homeschoolers, the homeschoolers, they have their own soccer, they create their own soccer league and they create their own sports team. So like a lot of people, oh, how do your kid get socialized or whatever? I was like, actually, they get socialized properly.
More.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily pick up the bad habits of kids experimenting on how to socialize by forming groups and bullying and all this other stuff, because their parents have gone through it and they're obviously wiser and they're in a controlled environment, and then they sign them up for track and field and soccer and all these other things in these homeschooling clubs. So it's like the Houston, I don't know what the name of the team is, but it's Houston homeschooling, whatever. And I think, here in the US, education needs competition. Kids are forced to go to school based on their zip code, which creates all kinds of biases and all kinds of legacy problems, right? And so I'm for school choice, and I guess homeschooling is a version of choice. It's kind of the only one you have right now. And I think the curriculums are kind of, they're not useful. Like I just told, this is so funny that I had this conversation. I was just ranting and raving. I said, the net present value formula is something I use intuitively or explicitly almost every day of my life, right? The ability to net present value cash flows, experiences, everything, right? What's the value of $200 2 years from now today? What's the value of this lease? Is this interest rate right? Is whatever, blah, blah, blah. Intuitively or explicitly every single day. I can do a survey. Nobody knows. Nobody uses it. Financial literacy isn't taught, right? But my daughter is in school and she's obsessing on how to stretch and transform, a function or equation or et cetera, something she will never, ever do. You know what I mean? In life, like, she has no interest in it. It's not appealing to her. Yes, the logic of it and trying to figure a problem is, but this is the worst case scenario. Yeah. She's spending hours of her life focusing on something that she wouldn't use. And although it's teaching her logic skills, she can be taught logic skills in another class that's more engaging, more important in a skill set that she's going to use. And so, my opinion is, like, school is so geared to, like, getting a job. Well, it's really geared towards getting into a college. Yeah. Right. It's a hack. Like, these kids are hacking tests to get good grades, to hack the interview process, to get into a college, to hack that, to get in a job. Right. It's not actual learning. No. And it's hacking. I mean, there is learning, but I'm like, it's hacking tests and hacking systems is more important than actually learning. And that, I don't know how that changes. I have no solution. I mean, it needs to change, but
What would you add to school if you, okay, still we need to send kids to school. What would you add? Would that be the financial
I mean, I would change.
literacy?
I mean, it's such a broad thing, but I would change the curriculum. A lot of the curriculum and what's going on, and change like this grade focus thing hack, right? Like, if you like, let's take the SATs. This is one of the things that is changing is the reliance on the SATs. Okay. In a kid who takes an SAT prep class, the better ones will move their grades 2 standard deviations. 2 standard deviations just from taking the prep class or whatever, these class, right? They're expensive, right? They have these expensive courses, teach you how to take the test, etc. So that means the average rich kid gets a 1540 to 1600 on the SATs, and the impoverished kid gets the 1200, 1050, 1100, whatever, right? Whereas if he had the course, he'd be 2 standard deviations higher, right? So parents know this, kids know this. They're hacking the SAT, right? Like, I don't need to learn. I'm not expressing that I'm a well-diversified kid. I'm expressing that I can hack this goddamn test, right? That's going to get me into X, Y, and Z school that is good, that they think is going to get me X, Y, and Z job or career path or connections, et cetera, right? And so all these biases, these economic biases, et cetera, are built in the system, and it's moving away from learning to hacking, right? And you see larger institutions like Google, they're like, we don't care what school you went to, right? You demonstrate an aptitude, whatever. And you see a lot of colleges going SAT out, right? Right. There's a movement to that, for that, because this whole structure of learning and college as a gateway to a better job, et cetera. One, the value proposition is diminishing, and 2, it's turned into this great big hack.
Yeah, I never thought of like the word hack there, but it is, because I cheated all over through like my high school into university. I was like, I just wanted like, okay, I need that diploma for us to like look okay, because for us like to get a BA is like you have to have it. Like university is so cheap, like you have to have it. We don't have debts like you have. Our university is like $3,000 a year, so it's like it's cheap. And I got a scholarship, but I was paying a girl who was in master's, so she would write all the thesis, everything. And I was working at that time because I was like, I was hacking everything. I hacked the hackers.
It's not even like you're doing it like kind of, let's say, out of the bounds of like what is acceptable, out of integrity hacking. But even the what's acceptable is a hack. It's like, whatever.
But there was no chance of learning all that. We had like 90 questions for exams, all like 3 pages long. It's like rote a memory. Like it can't perceive that much. I'm sorry, guys. I was studying history.
The utility of it is useless. It's a lot of it is like spending a lot of time on useless information or a useless process, and this whole system is built upon it, and it's got to change. But I could talk about that for hours, and I'd probably be talking about some of the shit I don't know what I'm talking. I'm not the expert, but that's kind of.
It's also interesting, from how you view life, and then also because you have kids, like I can talk. I have homeschooled other kids for other parents, and I love homeschooling. But there's also like the aspect that the networking, and kids sometimes love school. Like some kids, you send them from homeschool, and they go to school, and they just love it.
Yeah,
they absolutely,
but they need those choices. I mean, for me, for my kids to go to college, it's more about having the experience. When I went to college, my mom was like, look, you want to go into college and get a job, go to a trade school. Go to college to learn whatever you want to do. Like, don't worry about the job, right?
Yeah.
Like that was kind of her message. It's like, you're going to learn, and a lot of people are, the philosophy is, I gotta go to this college, I gotta get good grades so I can get a job at IBM or wherever. And then, that was sold to us back then, right? Like that was the path, right? You stayed in this ladder and whatever. And, my mindset was going, I wanted to go learn what I knew I was never going to do, because as a job, it would be torture, but it was interesting to learn. Right. And even then I didn't learn it that much because I just chased girls all around campus.
That was your experience.
That was my experience. Right. Yeah. The idea that like college as a jobs program's got to die. It's not. That's not what it's meant to be. It's a higher learning institution, and we should be people that demonstrate they have the capability and ability to learn and want to learn should go, and that should be the reason you go, right?
Yeah.
I want to pay this job because it's going to lever me into it's going to cost me $100,000, but the net present value of the degree is 120. So therefore I'm going to make $20,000 versus going straight to work. Like that calculation is, that's not what college is about. That's what trade school is about. You don't need to go to college for that. You know, I didn't take a class on English lit in college because it was going to help me in my career or whatever. You know?
Or to write a book.
Yeah.
How do you, what's your social circle like? And do you also believe in, like the 5 people that you hang out with most, like you become one of them or something, like the traits from the others? Or how do you keep your social circle and people you hang out with?
Well, it's really because I'm kind of, I know a bunch of people, but I hang out with very few people, very few. And when I go on trips, part of that's because I noticed, like, once I got married first time and I had kids, it was like, your world shrinks, you know? And that was voluntary for me. It didn't have to, but that was me. I also am very gregarious and outgoing in a room of like 2,000 people if I'm speaking in front of a large audience. But if I come into a room with a bunch of people I don't know, I don't talk. And I have this funny thing, like for 15, 20 years, I like, if I'm with Lara, I spend like, I don't know, 345 days a year, at least 20 hours a day with Lara for the past 4 years. But if we go to something or social, I'll be like, babe, talk for me. You got to talk for me. She's like, oh God, whatever. Don't leave me. You got to talk for me. And so I have very few, like my social circle is very few friends that I've known for 30 years and some people, whatever. And I've recently started to try and crack that. Like, that's why, honestly, I went to Summit, not because of the speakers, because I've seen most of their presentations. I said, I am going to force myself to be social and meet new people because I got to crack out of this, right? Like this is limiting me, and I need to go out there. So my social circle is kind of diverse. Like I have people in various, what I think various Venn diagrams of interest and things that they put in, right? Like, I think everybody has that, right? They have their friends that are like, I don't know, super technical, like to talk about art and whatever. And they have their political friends and their action friends that like to talk about charities and social causes and blah, blah, blah. I have my hedonistic friends that want to talk about babes and traveling and sex and drugs and what's the latest concert. You know, and I have, you know, other friends that are just kind of in the road, like I've known forever. You know, we played college football together and yada, yada, yada. And I don't see them as frequently as I used to, you know, we'll hang out, but that's kind of it, you know, people I've met through work, et cetera. But that's an interesting question because
yeah, because there's that theory of, you know, like you become who you hang out with. And very often people who, you know, like writing a book or you're Lara. Well, probably you could watch yourself and be like, oh my gosh, I've become so much like her.
I think, you know, for me, you know, hanging out, especially this time, it's like I have a lot of remote discussions or conversations about various subjects. Like if I want to talk about, like, certain friends, like I'm like, oh, let's talk about this. They're like, what are you talking? This is boring. Like, go away, right? And vice versa. Like, why are you talking? Like, what's wrong with you? You know? And so I try and snap a little bit out of everybody, you know? And some of them I wouldn't even call, you know, in the age of social media and Twitter and stuff like that, I purposely follow people that I vehemently disagree with on certain issues. And I find people that have interesting takes or look at different things. So like, I'm like basically copying their homework. They're like observing the world through this lens and they're pointing out interesting things and then they're posting them and commenting on them. I'm like, thank you for doing that homework for me. Wonderful. Enhance my life. You know what I mean? And it's wonderful, right? And so like, I think I become, if it's true, I'm becoming an amalgamation of all these people, and hopefully the guideposts, the hard rails are integrity, that I stay in integrity.
Because that's a very I can't remember the book where I read it recently, but that's a really interesting concept, because you don't have 12 years of to learn about, I don't know, mushrooms, like Paul Stamets, like he's like the
Right.
mushroom guy.
Right.
But then when
Yeah,
you
his
see
book
his
is
post,
Summit.
or when you like read some of his article, or like just seeing him somewhere talk, you're like, wow, I can get into his brain a little bit, but like his knowledge is like this, and I'll never be like researching mushrooms, but
No, I can just copy the homework. You can give me the report.
yeah.
It's like, great, thank you for spending years and years of your life going into mushroom land and putting it concisely in this report or this thing or this video that you put together explaining the highlights, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's awesome. And segueing into something else is like, so people's like, oh, business, I want to do this business. I'm like, it is so easy nowadays. Like, we've become lazier and lazier. For every business that somebody wants to open, the Small Business Administration, they will show you step-by-step ratios, metrics, things, loans, documents, papers, floor plans, sales per square foot you need to have, marketing. Well, every single resource is right there. You don't have to be like, go to a library, and, blah, blah, blah. You can GIS map where the best location is. There's so many damn tools. People have done your homework for you. Google's done my homework on so many things.
On everything.
On so many things, I've been able to just go, whatever. Oh, it's like Google. Oh, well, Google didn't do the homework, but they have a link to a guy who did the homework. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's so like, it's amazing what what information is transmitted and is available to you.
It's probably just putting aside your ego of like, but I want to do it by myself. It's like, no.
Like, nobody does anything great alone. If you want to do something good, yeah, you can do it, but you're never going to do anything great alone, ever. Not in history can anybody point to anything great done by one single person.
Not even writing a book?
Not even writing a book.
How is your book writing process?
They have editors, they have whatever. What's that? How is my process? So I'm the author, and I write it. My process was somebody finally getting off my ass that it's not going to be an app. I'm actually going to put these thoughts and ideas in this message in a book. Working with a ghostwriter, an agent. So I was like, I did a pitch letter, pitched it to agents. Saw 6 agents, 5 agents said they want to represent me. Took one agent. That agent said, your pitch letter, it's good, but it needs to be redone. Redid that. Had a book auction. Got a publisher. Cut a deal, got a deadline, book's due in 14 months, go to work, here's your advance,
Start writing.
Start writing, working with them, organizing chapters, tearing shit out, throwing it in. Like, by the time I did the audiobook, I was sick of my own words. It was like a 3-year process, soup to nuts.
Yeah. Wow.
I think it'd be faster now that I've done it, and I'd be, probably even self-published, I think, but it's a lot. Like, it's a lot. Like, you go through chapters over and over again. You completely rip out chapters or ways you explain it, because look, I could have wrote this book as a technical book, like an economics book, right? Like, I worked on full life cycle theory, right? Like, that's the basis. This is what this book is about, right? And that's been discussed. And the guys who first talked about full life cycle theory or full life cycle theory, they won a Nobel Prize back in whatever, right? And it's a very technical, like, income smoothing type thing, blah, 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 right? And one of the conclusions is that a rational person looking to maximize their life would aim to die with zero, right? They would have zero resources, right? Yeah. To me, I intuitively thought that up differently, right? I came to the same conclusion differently, but you find these guys are out there and you can write it very technically, but the truth doesn't seek into people's brains. Whatever, right? You have to explain it in a way, in an emotional, visceral way, right? On applications of it and how you came for it to sink in. Right? And so that's how this book is written. It's not like, there are some charts and graphs, and it's part of it.
Yeah, I didn't see that in audio version.
Yeah, you don't have the audio version. You can just go in there. And it's funny, when I was reading the audio version, just like, you said this graph, the graph's not there, take it out.
Yeah.
Take 2, you know what I mean? Like, and so, and there's like maybe, a couple formulas, but it's more a mental model, right? Like, you don't need these formulas to like actually think about it and get to that, you know, course correct your life so you get the most out of it. And so, you know, telling, you know, I open up with the story of my friend Erin, right? And Chris, her husband dying, right? John. And, you know, the reason why I do it is powerful, right? Like death and an emotional story like that opens people's up. It's like, okay, I talked about death. I talked about a married couple, somebody dying within a couple months, right? Of being diagnosed with cancer out of the blue. And what are they going to do with the time they have left, right? But their problem is everybody's problem. They just happen to have 3 months.
Yeah.
Right? I have 12,000, in theory, I have 12,900 days, right? And some change. So it's the same problem. It's just elongated a bit, but we still have to approach it the same way, right? And think about it the same way. And so opening that way and talking about that story is much better than going, mathematically, the net present value of your blah, 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 and we, you know,
of your life.
People will be like, open, close, right? I don't want to hear this shit, right? And then, so we go on from story to story. Like I tell the story about like how, you know, the more visceral ways about income smoothing hit me and future value hit me. Like when my boss with Joe Farrell, when he said I was a fucking idiot for saving $1,000, right?
I never actually thought about this, what you said, like you're going to earn more, you know, because I feel like, oh, well, I don't know. But I was like, yeah, if I take myself from 20 to now to 32, I'm like, yeah, like I've been earning more and more and more. Like,
yeah,
but I don't think so.
Yeah. That was the case. Like in my career path, right? Like some career paths, it's guaranteed. It's in the goddamn contract, right? And so, also I was even a special idiot because I was deliberately working in a low-paying job for the future benefit because I could have easily went and waited tables and made double or triple what I was already making, right? So for me to be saving and robbing from my poor self to give money to my future rich self was the dumbest fucking thing I was doing in my entire life. I was like delaying gratification of experiences that were meant to be having when you're a young, raging 20-year-old.
Exactly.
Giving them up so that Bill Perkins now can have an extra $1,000. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like the dumbest thing ever, right? And so, but that hit me. That didn't hit me because I was all proud, right? Like dude, I save money. I blah, blah, blah. I was like walking around like I'm the shit. And my boss is like, you're a fucking idiot. And I'm like, you know, it's just like, what? You know what I mean? Like, and you know,
I thought I'm so smart.
This guy, he's a trader and successful and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to get a gold star. And he's like, no, you're a fucking idiot. You know, that hits you, right? And when I tell that story, it hits people. They're like, yeah, you're right. But if I would like all this formula, if you can see your earnings power, blah, 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 it doesn't hit as much. People won't read it. And so, you know, that process, that was a long aside, you know, you're going through like, what is the best way to get the message across to people and in a way that they're going to use it, that refutes their concerns, addresses their fears, refutes their irrationality and lets the message sink home because I'm trying to save their life. Right. Like people are like, why'd you write this book? It's like, my number one fantasy, like everybody has their worst fantasy and worst nightmare, right? My number one fantasy, well, my worst nightmare is accidentally taking a life. Like I never, ever drive if I've even had a drop to drink. I am so, I've known people who have like, who got in an accident and accidentally killed somebody. I've seen stories where like, oh, so-and-so accidentally killed a kid or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know if I could ever recover psychologically. Like it would be just the albatross around my neck for the rest of my life. But on the other side, my number one fantasy is saving a life. And I think that's a lot of people. Huh? I think it's a lot of people's fantasies. Some people think, yeah, I want to have sex with 4 people and blah, blah, blah. You know, that type. But
just
for
go,
me,
just go and have it. I want to save lives.
Yeah. The number one for me is saving a life. And so when I look at this book and it's like, well, you're saving lives. I'm like, yeah, I'm actually saving people's lives. Like your life is the sum of the hours, right? I have 12,900. Maybe you have 18,000 hours left. You know, I mean, 18,000 days left, right? Or 19,000 days left. And if you're wasting your life exchanging it for money that you're never going to, if you're exchanging hours of your life for money that you didn't spend, you're de facto wasting your life. You you know, and I want to save it because that's the only thing you got. Your eyes, life is just a sum of these hours and the experiences you choose to have in them.
It's so
right?
interesting. People just don't think that way. They're like that what you said, like school, college, job, and then that's it. And they don't even like, it doesn't take that much like to listen to the audiobook. I think it's what, 4.5 hours or something, or 5 around.
Yeah, around, I guess.
Yeah, and then okay, then you would spend another day to do the, you know, to do your life math, and then you're like clear, like, okay, this is where I want to head. This is what I want to do. Okay, this many hours I have. This is how much money I have now.
Just
like,
cracking your
where do I go?
head open to the concept. If you just take a little bit and head that way, and you get just 1 week, right? So you spent, because I did the math on this. I was like, look, at the end of your life, somebody's going to try and keep you alive longer, whether it's the state, your relatives, etc. They'll put you on machines. They'll fucking pump you with all kinds of crap. You know, they'll have you stinky in a bed and you can't move or whatever. And they're just trying to keep you alive. And you'll live, you know, they'll try and keep you alive for like 3 to 6 months in general. And then you die. And they're going to spend an ungodly amount of money, okay? You yourself, out of your estate or your friends or family, or the combination of all of them, an ungodly amount of money for those 3 to 6 months, okay? In shitty quality of life.
Yeah.
Right? To save your life for 3 to 6 months. You spend 30 fucking bucks or 20 bucks or whatever they charge for the damn audiobook. I'm going to give you weeks and months and years of your life back that you've been fitting away and wasting. In the prime and high quality years of your life, it is the most effective lifesaver there is.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you go, I'm in this. I'm in oncolytical virus companies. It's like we have one that's oncolytical virus. It's like, oh yeah, you're going to get an extra 3 months of life if you get glioblastomas, or if you get it, you're going to get an extra whatever, and it costs $1 million. $500,000 to $1 million to extend your life 3 to 6 months at the tail end of your life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, let's just spend 30 bucks, have a mental model, and save months and years of our lives.
Exactly.
So that's how I view it. That's how I'm thinking about this book and these concepts and getting them across to people.
No, we had, I was in Sadhguru's ashram in India, and we went through this death meditation, and we had to journal. We had literally like, in 24 hours, you're going to be dead. Like we did this like huge death meditation. And then the journaling process was like, in 24 hours, you cannot call, you can't go out of here. Like, right. And then, whoa, what a clarity. Because I like knew straight away what I wanted to do that year. I was like a bomb. Like everything that I wrote down, I did in that year. And since then, like that, it just sticks with me. I'm like, well, wait a second. If I had 3 months, 6 months, 24 hours, like what would I do? And it's such a great practice. It puts things in perspective. Well, you're straight away, like away from the little stuff, or like, oh, but I just want a day on the beach. It's like, no, I want to spend, like, I want to hike with my brothers and sisters in my home country if I can't travel, you know, with them. Like, dumb.
Well, we started this call with, you know, isn't it morbid? You talk about death and death, whatever.
I know.
But that exercise, right, of being in touch with your death, that it ends, got you off autopilot, got you into what you really wanted out of life. And you began to choose and have the experiences that you wanted to have that were unique to you. Exactly. Awareness of the end is liberating. It's empowering and it's freeing. It's not morbid.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. I was like, when I was listening,
you went,
it's so powerful.
You had that experience, and that's exactly what it did, right? And I'm like, okay, now that you're where it's going to end, and I hit you in the beginning with this audiobook with like, hey, boom, it happens. It's going to happen. You're going to deteriorate. How do we model our lives? How do we get the most out of our lives? How do we choose when to have experiences? You know, how do we think about our resources? What are the resources there for? Are the resources there just to be resources, or are there resources there to support the experiences we want to have? Right? And get people on that.
Yeah, talk a little bit about money, and, you know, like this and that, you know, like money, big money, small money or something, people are sometimes, oh, well, like I don't want to be rich or that. But when I look at life quality, it's like the more money you have, like you can take better care of your health, you can have better experiences very often. I'm not saying that you can't have any experiences, but just like to maintain your body, like you said, like diagnostics, some biohacking, this and that, you can actually have better life. Like, would you agree you can have a better
No,
life quality?
I 100% agree, but I don't want to get like this for every resource level or income level, there is an optimal way, right? I don't care if you got $100 in the bank or 100 million. You still want to get the most you can. You don't want to waste $50 of life if you have 100, and you don't want to waste 50 million if you have 100 million, right? Like, so you still want to optimize, but I do believe that by and large, you're going to have more and better quality experiences for the same person, right? Because we have because there's certain people that, you know, they got $100 million and I don't think, you know, in my estimation, they're not having a great life. And there's certain people that have, you know, $10 and having a better life, right? Like no money forever, perpetually broke, right? But they're really living a fulfilling life, right? But for the same person, right? By and large, on average, super majority, okay, 4 standard deviations, 99%, whatever you want to call it. The more money you have, the more experiences you'll be able to have, and the better quality of experiences you'll be able to have. It's not always true, right? Certain people, it's like a tool, right? It's like,
yeah.
I mean, money's a tool. Everybody's like, oh, does it make you happy? Does it definitely give you this? It's not definite. It's for the same person, because I can give somebody hammer, nails, saw, and wood, and there's a pile on the ground. I give somebody else that, and there's a house, right? So hammers don't build houses. People do. Money doesn't produce happiness. What you do with the money produces happiness. So you have to know how to use the tool. And some people, you give a saw, and they cut the damn hands off, right?
Exactly.
So we know people who fall into a lot of money, and their life actually gets worse. It gets terrible, right? They're the people you give them a knife in a kitchen, and you expect them to cook a meal, and next thing you know, they're coming out with bloody fingers, right? And 2 fingers are cut off, right? But for a given person that knows how to use tools, who will be diligent, right? That tool is better. You're going to have more meals and better meals with a knife and cooking ware, right? And you're going to have a more better life or whatever. But you know, people be like, well, I know this guy, he won the lottery and blah, 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 and it ruined his life. I was like, yes, that happens because it's a tool.
Yeah, and his life was ruined before as well, probably.
Probably, and it's a tool. Well, a lot of people do not know how to use the tools. I mean, you see that with athletes, right? You have these athletes, they're broke in college, they come from poor economic background, whatever, no training, no tool sets. They come in, they get this huge tool called money. It's gone. It's vaporized. It's causing problems, and they're having fights with relatives, and they got divorced, and the girlfriend, and the fight, and whatever, right? And that's because you gave them a tool that they didn't know how to use, right? You don't give 5-year-olds power saws, right? For some people, giving them a bunch of money is giving them the power saw.
Yeah.
You give me a power saw, and I'm going to build something with it, right? I'm going to build something useful in a house, and a swing for my kids, and yada, yada, yada. You know, other people are going to cut their arms off. And so, you know, that's the caveat when you say, hey, more money, you're going to more money, better life, right? You know, it's kind of like, we should really be saying is get rid of the word money, more tools.
Yeah, more choices.
The ability to use them correctly, you're going to have a better life.
Yeah.
Right? It always comes back to personal responsibility in the individual. It always comes back to the individual. Look, there's a lot of people who go to college, they fly out. They have all the resources there. Free library, free internet, free this, free that. They fucking take advantage of it? No.
Netflix
I'm
and
one
chill.
of them. I am one of them, guilty as charged. So I'm not shitting on that. I'm not shitting on the public or shit on other people. I'm one of them. You know, I'm one of them. I had people that like, they went this way, they're blah, blah, blah. They get this, they're valedictorian, they move on. You know, like that's them, right? They don't necessarily use the resources available to them, right? I get 1,000 questions on the internet that would be page 1 Google pop-up search. Like really, like, you know, it's like, come on, You know what I mean? This is like, you know,
Some people just have it, some don't.
I don't know if some people have it, some don't. I mean, yeah, they don't have it because there are reasons why you're right. Some people don't have it and they don't. And the reasons why they don't have it, they're varied, right? I don't want to be like, you were born this way, but somehow you got to this path. But the good news is, for by and large, I think everybody, that can change.
Exactly.
If you're the type of person that, hey, would cut their arm off with the tool, that can change. You can learn properly. There are resources out there for you. Learn not to cut your arm off the chain. So if you do hit a windfall or earn the money, it doesn't ruin your life. It actually makes your life better.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that I realized also somewhere in the middle of my journey. I was like, well, but if I live in a better place, like healthier place, I used to live in Vietnam, in Hanoi, teaching English there. And I was like, well, at this moment, it's really nice. It's exciting, but all that pollution, you've been to China as well. Like that pollution is like, who's going to pay my hospital bill? I'm like, I don't think so. I should rather move somewhere away to a healthier place because that is impacting my future in a way.
In major ways. Yeah, it is. When I went to Beijing, I went there for the Olympics, and they shut down all the factories, the rain thing, cleaned up the air. And I was doing like a tour walking around. They're like, oh, we normally can't see the sky and blah, blah, blah. And it's always, and I was just like, this lady's bullshitting me. Like, whatever. Yeah, the pollution bullshitting me. So I was there for the closing ceremonies. They turn on everything. Like that day, the day we're taking off, it looks like it's snowing. These ash flakes all around. You can't see 20 feet out the plane window and around you. It was like, oh my God, how does anybody live here? And I was just like, and I was just amazed. I was like, this is the capital. This is where the leaders live. Like, they're giving up a lot for this. You know, I was like, it's gotta be something good. I don't understand it, but I would never, ever live there.
Yeah, I don't think it occurs to them that they're just used to that. They don't even think it's like too much of pollution. What is pollution really? You know, and it's another education system and everything.
I think they, you know, it's a cumulative effect, and the cancer rates are skyrocketing, and the healthcare costs are skyrocketing, and they're starting to pay attention, right? Because the bill does come due. You know. The bill does come due. And so there are some, I've watched a documentary on some activists in there. It's a very command and control, like trying to raise and talking about how kids are stunted in people's lives and all this other kind of stuff. But they got a long fight to do it because you're right. It's part of the culture and they're on autopilot.
Yeah. I was going to move to Shanghai this year to live there for 6 months or a year. But that was when COVID hit China, and I was in China, and then I had to go to Hong Kong to renew visa, and I never went back because they already closed the borders and everything.
I love Shanghai.
Yeah, Shanghai was amazing. I was so surprised with all the architecture of like the old architecture and the new. It's amazing. All right. Final question. What would you suggest to someone who's writing a book? Because I am writing a book, and I would really appreciate your any tips, anything.
Is that me or you?
That's you, I think. I don't have anything here.
I don't know what that was. I don't even have. I was like, what is that? Okay. Final question. Oh, wow. I mean, I'd said this before, one is a start, but you're in the process of writing, right? Wow. You're in process. I would say, keep it up, write anything that comes to mind, and don't be afraid to cut. You know, so don't start like with, this is stupid, I'm not going to write it. Write it, say it, speak it into your thing, see if it fits in, but don't be afraid to judiciously cut. And the second thing I would say is find your friends that are not afraid to give you negative feedback. Like, I don't know if I did read the acknowledgments. I don't know if you got it, but I had a friend, Cooper Ritchie, who I trusted would be like, no, this sucks. Or what are you talking about here? Blah, blah, blah. And that was invaluable because there was shit that sucked or dragged on in the book that I cut out. So if you think this book was a B, it was like a D plus before Cooper's feedback, you know, or C minus, you know what I mean? And it was very important to have somebody who cares about you enough to tell you that your breath is bad and you have a booger hanging out of your nose. Because if you don't have somebody that cares that, you're going to walk around with a booger hanging out of your nose and bad breath, right?
Yeah.
And so you need that friend who's going to be like, the fuck are you talking about? This sucks. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get this. This is confusing, or argues back with you and gives you those notes. So then you can go back and do that. So my first advice is start. My second thing is write everything. Don't be afraid to cut, right? And change it around. Just because you wrote it and it's there and it was dear to you, because there was a very big deer diagram where I had this diagram about early in life and protractor analogy, and I had this graph, and then it was like, my friend was like, it's confusing. I was just like, you're right. It is confusing. Nobody's going to deal with this shit. Cut it. And it was like 6 pages. And I was working with Marina, my ghostwriter, and she's like, you sure you want to cut that? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, it's gone. No, it's gone. She was like shocked. And I was like, no, most writers don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, they get attached to it to try and tweak it and keep it in there. And then the third is, a lot of people do not seek out negative feedback. And one of the things I agree with Elon Musk is, he says the most valuable feedback there is negative feedback. Valuable. Everybody has a mirror, right? Everybody has a mirror in their house. Whoever has a house or a pocket mirror or something, right? That is feedback. And when you look in the mirror, you're not looking in the mirror going, I'm fucking perfect, right? You're going, oh, this is out of line, and my teeth and my hair, whatever. You're getting negative feedback from that mirror in order to adjust. If you don't have negative feedback, you can't correct. You're just roaming around thinking my shit is great. And, your friends who are like too polite or not whatever, or don't care about you enough, they'll be like, oh, it's good. Oh yeah, it's great, or whatever. It's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and they ask you how the food and service was, but the food was late, they didn't bring the condiments on time, the blah, 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 whatever. What do you say? It's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think everybody has had that experience, right? Like, it's like, it sucks or whatever, but it could be really bad. You say like, it's fine, whatever. You just want to, you know why? Because you don't give a fuck about them enough to give them the negative feedback.
Dang, that's such a good one.
You know what I mean? If you really cared about them, if they were your best friends and you wanted their restaurant to see, be like, yo, I got to tell you, man, you didn't have the fucking salt and pepper. Like, who orders fries without ketchup? The ketchup should have been there. The fucking chef took a half an hour, and the fucking food, and then it was cold. You know what you do? You never come back. You say, it was fine. You leave a little tip, and you never come back.
Yeah. Wow.
And the reason isn't because you're not confrontational. It's just, you don't give a fuck about them. Why do you fucking care? You don't want to deal with the hassle of disappointment and the look on their face. And you don't want to have the manager come and talk to you and be like, I'm sorry, can I give you free? You just like, you don't want to deal with that shit. You don't give a fuck about enough from the care. So you got to find somebody who gives a fuck about you, who will tell you your shit sucks when it sucks.
I'll be on the look for a new friend. No, but it's so true. I was just doing a yoga and meditation retreat, and after I was like, oh, guys, can you write a review? And I was like, please write everything that you didn't like, because I love growing. Like, and if you write something that, even if you didn't like the color of something, like little things, like, please, because I want to grow. And not so many people are on that mindset. What you said, they're like, no, like this, everything was perfect. It was like, come on, that was something that pissed you off.
Yeah, you have to, a lot of times you have to pull it out of people. Like, it's like, oh, what's wrong with that? That's fine. It's like, okay, was any part, then you have to go, was any part too long? Was any part confusing? Was any part whatever? Like, you got to pull the fucking negative feedback out of them.
The quality questions.
Yes, you got to get it out of them. So if you can find the friend who's just like, yo, I'm intelligent, they're intelligent, whatever, and they're going to give you negative feedback, they care about you, that's great. And then when you ask them the quality questions, they're not pulling punches. Because when you put your book out there in the world, they're not, you know how they don't, the way they don't pull punches is they don't buy your book. They don't recommend it. They tell it was a piece of shit or whatever. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Impact, your message doesn't get out. And you might've had the most beautiful message in the world. The most beautiful, but you just didn't write it the right way, or did this deliver, this was too whatever. And so the world misses out. So get the negative feedback.
Yeah, that's a brilliant one. Thank you so much for that. Where can people meet you? Are you on any speaking engagements, or it's just mostly your book and a little bit of online presence?
I think like right now it's very hard to just meet me, like, you know, like just come up, because you just come out and it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, you
Distance,
know, right now,
come on.
yeah. But I am in the Twitter streets, right? Like I'm the place where I'm most engaged or respond to anybody or chitty chat or debate anything, you know. I'm addicted just like everybody else to the Twitter streets, debating. So I'm at BP22 on Twitter. That is probably the format to be like, yo, what up? Or what are you doing? Or what do you think about this? In person, I'm usually in the Virgin Islands and here. I mean, I think when, you know, it is allowed, there will be a format where I can go to a thing, you know, but if there's a summit, I'm going to go to it. There's another TED, I'm going to go to it, you know. There's a Burning Man. If you like music and ACL, if that ever opens up, that's Austin City Limits. It's the best music festival I've ever been. I hate Coachella. It's poorly run and not organized, and is a disaster. Austin City Limits has the best organization, tons of stages, all the music. You can see me there. You know, just events. You'll see me wandering the planet just like anybody else.
Super. And if I called you in 3 or 5 years, what would you love to tell about an ommmsome Live Design podcast? What would be like, oh yes, Mons, I want to go and meet you again on a podcast and tell you about this thing that I did?
Wow. I think, I mean, the most of my adventures, right, that I have mapped out are activities of travel that will be difficult for me as time goes on. So I would like to tell you about swimming with the whale sharks, hiking Machu Picchu, okay, hiking some Alps around, going on safari again, and then some trains around. I trained from here to here. I'm into training now. I thought I would hate it. I did it, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. You know what I mean? And so I would like to tell you about my journeys on the planet and the people I've met over the past 5 years.
Yeah. Where are you going for whale sharks? You have an idea?
You know, the funny thing is, I think the universe has been conspiring against me not to do this. I have planned the trip 3 times, and every single time there's been a typhoon, hurricane, or weather event where. So I was going to go do it in Southeast Asia. There's a typhoon. I was going to do it in Mexico. You know, hurricane comes over across there. Couldn't do it. And so I am going to do it wherever they are. Whatever. So they have a season, etc. Yeah. I have a travel agent, and she's tracking. It's like, hey, it's whale shark season in Baja, Mexico. You want to go? I got to go, whatever. Or it's whale shark season, typhoons. I would go, blah 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 blah. You know, so that is a kind of, I go where they are. You know what I mean?
Super. That's
I go
best.
where they are. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for the conversation, for all the tips, and your book is very, very inspiring. Really, not just inspiring, it makes you think deep, and that's the best. It's not just like another, oh, I'm inspired for them. Like, no, I just have to like, I actually drew the line, the bucket list thing.
Yes,
like,
yes. Time bucketing. Yeah. Yeah.
I did that, and I was like, but I have to like, you know, right?
Yeah,
fill it in.
Don't get discouraged. It's not going to come to you all at once. It's impossible.
Yeah. Because I have had also many experiences, and I'm kind of in I'm like, okay, but what do I want to like? It doesn't excite me about thinking about going to Papua New Guinea for bird watching. I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
It could be like reconnect with relatives. It could be anything.
That's what I learned from you today on the podcast. I was like, no, I just have to like go a little like step by step and some small things. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here.
You're
Namaste.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you got value out of it. That's what makes me happy. I'm glad you got value. Namaste back.